Hey everybody, I thought I'd film a short video this week with all of the announcements. Since we're not meeting very much thanks to move-in, I hope you guys all have a great move-in day when you're moving back to campus, if you're moving back to campus. So first, I wanted to remind everyone that next week we're meeting live in person. And so people whose last names start with an A through L will meet on Monday. That's in the HCC room 327. And folks whose last name begins with an M through Z will meet on Wednesday in the same room, HCC 327. So that'll be our first live in-person meeting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you and being back on campus. The next thing I wanted to remind you folks of is that we do have a few due dates this week. You have 2 due dates this week and then 2 things to be working on for next week. So the first thing to be working on this week is actually our first independent project. And I'm excited to introduce that to you. We ran out of time in class on Monday, so I didn't get to talk to you very much about that. So in this video, in just a few short minutes, I will walk you through what's included in the individual project assignment and the expectations about what you should have turned in by the end of this week. So that's the first thing you should work on. The next thing you should work on is the quiz that covers last week's material. That's all about the introduction to Python as well as arithmetic operations. That quiz is live. It's posted on Canvas. It's quiz number 3, and that is also due at the end of this week. So both of those items are due on Saturday evening. And then you also have some items to work on this week that are due the following week on Monday. The first of those is your Python assignment for this week, the challenge about the variables, input and output, and that's the one where you write the concessions program. That is due on Monday next week. So definitely spend some time working on that. That's also excellent preparation for the very first project. If you can complete that lab, you can do the individual project, no sweat. So work on that and then send questions if you have any questions while you're working on that Python assignment. That's due on Monday. And then finally on Monday, if you have your assigned class day on Monday, the class preparation for the next topic, which is lists, that's also due on Monday. If your assigned day is Wednesday, then you have a little bit of extra time, and yours is due on Wednesday instead. So it's kind of all the due dates that are coming up. And now I wanted to spend some time talking to you about the very first independent project, because this is a new kind of assignment for our class. So far, we've been doing the weekly lab assignment or homework set, and this one's a little bit different. So I am going to share my screen. I have it up here in Canvas. We'll go get it. So you can get to the independent project assignment. It's in the week 3 module, and it is called Independent Project 1. And the first piece of it is to create an IPO chart and 2 test cases. So there's absolutely no code that's required for the assignment that's due this week. Now, eventually, you'll be writing the code for this assignment. So I'll click on that so that we can bring it up. So again, the goals for this particular piece that is due this week is just to gain practice creating IPO charts for a project and to gain practice identifying test cases, where a test case is just a collection of input and then the output that would be expected for that input. And we practice creating that in the lab this week with the concessions program. So you can use your concessions program solution, the IPO chart and the test case that you make in that lab as a model when you're completing this particular assignment. The format and the kind of information that you put in that should be really, really similar. And again, there's no code that's due this week for this individual project. Just as a reminder, all phases of the individual project should be completed independently. This is the one kind of assignment that you do for this course where you're not supposed to go to the lab aids or the peer tutors or to talk to your friends about it or Google for it. Everything that you need to know to complete this project, we've learned previously in this class, and you should be able to do independently. If you do get stuck on anything with the project, it's no problem. Just send me email and I would be happy to provide assistance or hints or put you on the right track. Now in this assignment, there's a link that takes you to the actual project description. You definitely want to read that. And then for the part that's due on Saturday this week, you want to turn in an IPO chart, showing that you've planned out your idea for the project, and then turn in 2 test cases that you could use to test your software after it's complete. And again, that's all that's due this week on Friday. So let's look at what you'll be designing. So if you click on the individual project assignment, final code and write-up, it takes you to the description for the project. I'm going to click that in here. On the first page, there's reminders about not getting help and also talking about what the learning goals are for this project. So in this assignment, you'll be creating some software to solve a relevant real-life problem. And we'll also be looking at some issues related to data privacy so that we're thinking about kind of how this software fits into the context of the discipline. And here's the software goal that you're trying to create. You're trying to write a program that calculates how long it would take you to get from an origin to a destination. So this might be useful software if you wanted to visit, say, your favorite coffee shop close to campus, and you wanted to know, do I have time to walk to my favorite coffee shop, or should I settle for just getting something really quick on campus? So for example, I like Starbucks, and Starbucks I know is located 0.8 miles from campus. So I could estimate how long it would take me to get there. If I walk quickly at 4 miles an hour, it might take a certain amount of time. If I walk more leisurely at 3 miles an hour or 2 miles an hour, it'll take me a different time. If I drive in my car at 25 miles an hour, it will take a different length of time. And I can figure out how much time is required using the laws of physics. So I included these 3 equations in here. Now in your solution, you only have to use one of those to figure out what's the amount of time required for my travel. So you can think about which of those is applicable in your problem solution. And then I gave you some sample calculations in here. If I'm trying to go to Starbucks and it's 0.8 miles away and I'm walking at 4 miles an hour, it will take me 12 minutes. If I am walking at 3 miles an hour for 0.8 miles, it will take me 16 minutes. And if I drive in my car at 25 miles an hour, it will take me 1.92 minutes to go that same distance. Now, on the software that you're creating, you're just trying to make one of those estimations. You're not trying to compare different travel options. We're just keeping things simple. This is the very first programming assignment in the Introduction to Computer Science course. We're not trying to make it really complicated and compare lots of options. Just so that you guys can see that this is a real world problem, I noted that Google Maps does kind of the same thing. If I chart out like how long is it going to take me to walk to Starbucks from someplace on campus, it will give me different options like different street paths that I could take. And it can also do the walking versus driving if you click on different options when you Google things. But again, this is just for an example for context showing that this type of problem is relevant in real life and that commercial software solves these type of problems as well. But we will be creating a much simpler version. Again, ours isn't going to compare different options for travel, different modes of travel, or different paths of travel. It's just going to make a simple calculation based on the information that the user provides. So in your software, you should take these 4 steps in your final code. You want to welcome the user to state the software's purpose. You should ask the user to enter information that's required so that you can calculate the estimated amount of time for travel. So you should think about what information you need to make that calculation. And then be sure to include good input prompts so that the user knows what to enter and what type of units to use as they enter their data. Then you'll use an arithmetic expression to calculate the amount of time required. Be sure that when you express your final answer, you put it in minutes, not hours. And then finally, you want to communicate the result that you calculate to the user along with a label. I know it can be kind of overwhelming looking at this first project, especially with all those real world examples from Google Maps and things like that on the previous page. So just to be clear, I included sample input and output. This is exactly what your code should look like when it's finished. So you're not doing a graphical thing like Google Maps. Your program should print out a welcome message, ask the user for information about their travel, and then finally, it should print out the result using minutes as the units. There's a few reminders in here. You want to make sure you look at those. Those will help you to maximize the amount of points that you get for your project. So that's kind of the big picture about everything related to project number 1. Remember, your goal is not to create Google Maps. That's really complicated and not something that we'll be doing in this particular course. Your goal is to create a simple software program that asks the user to enter some information, makes a calculation, and then communicates the result back to the user. So it creates a short dialogue between the user and the computer. And then also to consider some real-world issues related to this with data privacy. So those are the big picture goals long-term with the project. The only pieces that are due this week are the IPO chart and the 2 test cases. And that is so that I can make sure that you're on the right track before you sink a lot of time into creating the code for this. This first project is actually pretty modest. I think that you actually write more code in Lab 2 than you do to complete this project. So if you're trying to complete this project and you're writing 10 or 15 lines of code, you've made it much too complicated. You do not need that many lines of code to solve this particular problem. If you folks have any questions about the project, please don't hesitate to ask. I know we got shortchanged a little bit on time this week during class, and so I would be super happy to provide any kind of clarification about this particular assignment before it's due on Saturday. So again, final recap, you have 4 things to be working on. 2 of them are due this week, 2 are due next week. The first is the quiz from last week that's all about Python and arithmetic expressions. That's due on Saturday this week. The first piece of project number 1 is also due on Saturday this week, and that piece is just creating the IPO chart and the 2 test cases. You don't have to write any code. The code is due the following week, and I'll give you feedback this weekend so that you can feel really confident if you want to start writing the code over the weekend or early next week. And then the 2 items that are due next week are the Python challenge for input and output, where you write the concessions program. That's due on Monday. And then finally, your class preparation assignment for the next topic, which is lists. That is due on either Monday or Wednesday, depending on which day you will be attending class. I hope you guys have a really awesome move-in, and I can't wait to see you next week. Bye.